Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2022-23 season. My name is Dan and it's time for the Gameweek 25 /double Gameweek 25 tier list video where we're going to have a look at the most popular transfers of the week and rank them in terms of how good they are as players to bring in right now. So if you do enjoy this one, guys, please do leave a like, please do subscribe if you're new around here. Let's have a look at the tier list. Alright guys, so same as always guys, we've got 30 players, the 30 most popular transfers in at time of recording. If there's any other players that we don't mention today, do leave them in the comments and we'll perhaps have a look at them, reply to some comments. That might be pretty fun. So yeah, in these categories, must buys down to avoids. Let's start you off with the 30th most popular transfer of the week, which is going to be James Ward-Prowse. I'm going to put him in optional. I don't think he's such a bad player to bring in. I don't think he's a terrible player to bring in. We obviously have got a double game week coming up for Southampton, and what's great about Southampton is they are one of two teams alongside Crystal Palace who actually have a fixture in game week 25 and also have a double game week in game week 27. So it allows you to buy a player now that actually sets you up for a future double game week as well. So if you're planning on buying and keeping Ward-Prowse, then fantastic. But as always, guys, what we find with Ward-Prowse is that he scores his free kicks pretty much at random. You can't predict when it's going to happen. So you either buy him and keep him and just wait for that moment where you're going to get the big score, or you just say, I'm not the kind of guy who can have the patience for Ward-Prowse and I'm not going to buy him. So that's going to be up to you, I guess. Next up, we have got Pickford, who I actually think is a great transfer. I feel like he is the #1 goalkeeper to go for right now. If I'm buying a goalkeeper for game week 25, it is going to be Jordan Pickford. So if you are right now someone with, I guess, De Gea or Nick Pope in your team, who's obviously suspended as well, and you need to find that new goalkeeper to come in who actually has a fixture in game week 25, unless you're happy to play your substitute goalkeeper, maybe you've got a Ward as your substitute goalkeeper, maybe you can use them, or maybe you can bring in Pickford in place of your substitute goalkeeper if you've got a little bit of cash to splash. I think that could be a pretty good move as well. But yeah, basically it gets you a double game week goalkeeper in a situation where you might not have a playing or decent goalkeeper for game week 25 anyway. So one of those situations where you have a good opportunity here. We're expecting Everton to do quite well defensively. I know they couldn't keep the clean sheet against Liverpool, but remember, Liverpool are one of the top attacks in the league, even if they can't defend so well. But yeah, certainly Pickford, I think he's a good pick to go for. I like him. I think he's going to be one of the highest scoring Everton players over the double game week, possibly the highest scoring goalkeeper over the double game week. So I like it. Let's go for him. Next up, we're going to go for Grealish. I guess he's like optional. Don't love this pick. Don't hate it either. Grealish has been ticking along quite nicely, and he does seem quite nailed on right now, which is kind of rare. And I know a lot of people are looking for that midfielder to bring in right now, and if I'm totally honest, guys, there is not much. There's not much going on in terms of midfielders you can kind of you can buy at the moment. So I guess if we have to go for someone, maybe Grealish is not such a bad option. People looking to replace the likes of Bruno Fernandes, probably not Rashford, but maybe, maybe you've got Almiron. There's a lot of midfielders who blank in game week 25. You guys have probably already got your Arsenal players, so they're not going to be an option. Where do we look? Maybe Grealish is the answer. I'm not super convinced by it, but look, there are worse picks, I guess. Next up, Ben Mee. Ben Mee, fantastic. He's been doing really well at the moment. Solid, really good results. Clean sheets look on the cards every game week for Brentford. In fact, I really like the look of him. I think even in the double game week coming up in game week 27, you can prepare yourself for the double game week. And I don't think in game week 25, Ben Mee will concede a single goal. The problem is he won't concede a single goal because he doesn't have a fixture. So any player, really, who doesn't even have a fixture in game week 25, why are you buying them? Like, if you're on a wild card and you're just setting your team up, preparing it for future game weeks, then look, that's fair enough. Get those double game week players on your bench ready to go if you're on a wild card right this second. But if you're just using your regular transfers, there is literally no reason for you to buy Ben Mee right now. Literally no reason. And I'm sure there will be someone in the comments who now explains to me, well, I'm actually buying Ben Mee because, I have a feeling his price is going to go up, even though he blanks, so everyone's actually going to be selling him. And I feel like I have to get him now. If I don't get him now, I'm not going to be able to afford him later, or I need to make a double switch somehow in order to get... I can't think of a good reason. I'd be surprised if any of you can convince me otherwise. So we're going to stick Purvis Estepinian there as well. I'm not going to put these players in any particular order. They're just avoids because they don't have fixtures. No point in wasting too much time on them. Most of us guys who are, fairly sensible FPL managers, will not need too much convincing that you shouldn't buy a player who doesn't have a fixture in a game week. Bit crazy. But anyway, we got Seamus Coleman next at 4.4 million. Yeah, I think a lot of people are jumping on him because of the goal. This happens every week. We talk about this every week. There's always a defender who gets an attacking return, and suddenly everyone wants to buy them because they think that's going to happen every week. Coleman, I think, has scored 2 goals in his last 4 seasons, something like that, in all competitions. And that has been playing some decent amount of minutes as well. So overall, yeah, not really too keen on this one. I don't, like, he's okay, but look, I think there's slight rotation with Patterson. We've seen Patterson is back to fitness now. He's been playing with the under-23s at Everton. Maybe Patterson comes in for one of these games and Coleman plays the other one. I just would not be going there, to be honest. Connor Cody, I guess he's optional if you really want to go in on the Everton defence. There is another Everton defender that I think is much better than Cody. But look, he's okay. But he doesn't provide as much attacking threat as, let's just say it, Tarkowski. He doesn't provide as much attack threat as Tarkowski, and he's a lot more expensive than Tarkowski. So it seems like almost no reason to go for Cody, other than you kind of want to double up on the Everton defence maybe. Hey, if that's what you want to do, fine. He's not the worst pick in the world, but don't love him either, especially considering there are other options there for you. Leno's been doing really well recently. I'm going to put him in an optional, I guess, just because I feel like he has actually been arguably one of the best goalkeepers since the break, really. He's been playing very well. Fulham are just a team reborn. They've really changed their style of play. It used to be a lot of goals and not many clean sheets. Now it's the other way around. Not a lot of goals, and they've been actually fairly defensively tight. And I think a lot of that has been to do with a lot of saves from Leno. So been impressed by him. Really been impressed by him since the break. If you are, again, one of those people who need to buy a new goalkeeper for now, for the future, for a little bit of longer term, hey, Leno might not have a double game week, but I think he is one of those goalkeepers that actually could be okay for the slightly longer term. So don't mind him too much. And let's go Van Dijk next. Not really keen on this one, to be honest. I'm going to put him in avoid. I'm just going to put him in avoid. I don't like it. I'll tell you the truth, guys. I don't like it. 6.5 million is a lot of money for a team that is quite literally one of, if not the worst defence in the Premier League. And I know a lot of people will be looking at the last 2 games for Liverpool and saying, hey, maybe Liverpool have turned a corner in terms of keeping clean sheets. 2 clean sheets in 2. You've got to put context around this. Remember, one of the clean sheets was against Everton, who famously cannot score goals at all this season. They don't have any strikers or forwards or very much creativity, really, and are playing it under a very defensive manager there as well. So no real surprise that Everton didn't score a goal against Liverpool, let's be honest. We've got the Newcastle game as well. So Newcastle playing with 10 men for the vast majority of that game. Newcastle, even if they were playing with 11 men, they're, again, a team that really has been struggling for goals recently. So Newcastle have actually only scored 3 goals in their last 7 Premier League matches. So, again, a really, really weak attack. Now, in fairness to Liverpool, their double game week fixtures are against 2 weak attacks again. Got Crystal Palace there and Wolves. So two fixtures which are quite good for clean sheets typically. The problem for me with Liverpool defenders in particular is that I do not want these players long term. Fair enough, I would be happy to take a punt on some of them, I guess, on a double game week like this, where the 2 fixtures are against weaker defences, weaker attacks, sorry, so there's higher chance of clean sheet. But I don't think that Liverpool is suddenly a much better defence. We've still seen, even in these 2 easy defensive games, we have seen that Liverpool have been conceding a decent amount of XG in each of those games as well. So a lot of that is going to be to do with the fact that the likes of Newcastle and Everton do just have poor finishes on their team, which we kind of know. We've seen that for a little while now. And therefore, when Liverpool do start playing some slightly tougher attacks, it's going to be back to business as usual, and they are going to be conceding goals. So for the long term, Liverpool defenders are just straight up avoids. I think there are some picks you can go for, might be worth a little bit of risk in the double game week, or if you are planning on wild carding very soon, if you're free hitting right now, hey, maybe these could be some decent players to go for as well. But overall, I've got to put Van Dijk in avoid. I don't want Liverpool defenders in my team long term, and I certainly don't want Van Dijk if I am going to get a Liverpool defender. But there are some others that have a little bit more interest that we are going to be speaking about very soon. Kilman up next. I think he is probably going to go in good transfer. I feel like Kilman, whilst Wolves I don't think are going to be quite as good defensively as Everton in the short term or in the long term, they do have better fixtures than Everton. So although I think I slightly prefer Everton defenders, I do feel like the Wolves defenders still do have their place. I think they've got a better double game week. I think they've got some opportunities for points in this week. And, you know, Kilman, 4.4 million, you know, is a much better price than some of the other players. But, you know, still there is another defender who you know is going to be higher rated than Kilman, if I'm totally honest with you. Luke Shaw. Very easy to put him in a void as well. Tony, straight in a void. Why are so many people buying these players? Why are these players so popular? Is there that many people on wildcards? Maybe that's what's going on right now. Who knows? Neves, I'm going to put him in a void. I know people are talking about the likes of Neves. I've seen people talking about Neves. I've seen people talking about, you know, Sarabia and Cunha. And at Everton, people have been talking about the players like McNeil. I think we need to kind of remember that this is just one double game week. Just because a player has a double game week doesn't automatically mean they're going to score FPL points. So we've seen so many trap double game weeks in the past where people just jump on players just because they have a double game week. And I think midfielders this week are particularly susceptible for it because everyone is really struggling to pick out a midfielder. So they're picking these players out like Neves, who are playing in, you know, defensive midfield for a team that doesn't score goals. You know, what is the best you're hoping for from here, really? He did get a couple of returns a couple of weeks ago, but he was playing in a different position in that game, which is kind of not playing in that position anymore. So, look, Neves, McNeil, Sarabia, whatever other random players that you wouldn't dream of picking in a normal game week, just because it's a double game week doesn't mean you should pick them. And I will talk about this just a little bit more because I do want to kind of expand on this one because I can see a lot of people getting drawn into these traps. If you are sacrificing players like, you know, it's probably going to be players for you like Bruno Fernandes. So if you've got a Bruno Fernandes right now, you just need a midfielder to cover you for game week 25. Otherwise, you're going to be playing with 10 men. I'd rather play with 10 men than Bruno Fernandes because by removing Bruno Fernandes, that, you know, each transfer costs essentially 4 points when you think about how much a transfer costs for a hit. So if you think about it as 4 points per transfer, and I know it's not literally working out like this, I am simplifying it, of course, but 4 points to take out Fernandes for Neves. You're not going to want to keep Neves for the long term. You know that already. You're going to have to transfer him back out again. So that's going to cost you another 4 points to change that again. When actually Bruno Fernandes in future game weeks could be a really, really decent player to have. Maybe you've got a Mitoma or a March or someone like that who you really like for the long term, but you need to remove them to get your 11 men. You're removing a Mitoma or a March who you really, really like long term. You're bringing in Neves, 4 points. You're taking Neves back out and bringing back your Mitoma after, another 4 points. 8 points. So what you need in order for this move to pay off is for Neves to score 8 points. For Dwight McNeil to score 8 points. For whoever else you're going for, Sarabia. I've seen a few other suggestions, right? Is Neves going to score 8 points in game week 25, even in a double game week? Probably not. Probably not. It's probably going to score 4 points. If we're totally honest, 4 points, maybe 5 points if he keeps a clean sheet in one of the two games. You know, maybe gets a yellow card in one of the games. That wouldn't be totally surprising, would it? So you are losing out. You are using more transfers than you need to. You're getting sucked into a double game week trap, and you're actually removing players that you want long term. And it's going to cost you in the long run to do that. And I know a lot of people are taking hits to do these kind of moves, and I just want to go on record and say, I hate it. I actually hate it. I can't get my head around why, just because it's a double game week, people think these players who you would never dream of picking for your FPL team previously, who you never would dream of them getting FPL points in any individual game week, you suddenly think because they've got two individual game weeks, that somehow they will get FPL returns. Doesn't work like that. Football doesn't work like that. Don't get it. Maybe that's controversial. Maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? I guess we'll find out, won't we? But for me, these players just are not good FPL assets. They are cheap for a reason. They are never picked for a reason. They're differential for a reason. You know, it all adds up until you start trying to add 2 + 2 points per game week and somehow ending up with 10, which is not how it works. Anyway, we'll move on now, I think. Raya, avoid, doesn't have a fixture. Why are people bringing him in? I guess if you can free up some I'm really struggling to think of a reason, but I'm sure there is some really, really specific reasons why people might be bringing in these players. Wildcard, maybe. Iwobi is the one of all of these who I consider to genuinely be terrible midfield options that people are going for that are all around 5 to 6 million. So many terrible, terrible options that just because I have double game weeks. Iwobi, for me, is the best of the bad bunch. he is still very low tier optional, and there's still a lot of players I would much rather pick than him. You know, the single game week players like Grealish and Ward-Prowse, I would back to outscore Iwobi on a double game week, probably just slightly. Definitely more than the likes of Neves and whoever else, and McNeil, you know. But look, Iwobi, I kind of understand. The fact that Iwobi is on some set pieces does really help, especially with Everton, the kind of team that is going to be scoring their goals from set pieces, I guess. And Iwobi has like shown flashes of decent, you know, decent stuff over this season. He has just shown some real flashes of brilliance. You just got to hope that this game week is the week that the brilliance is shown, rather than one of the many, many other game weeks where, you know, we don't really see as much actual output, FPL output from him. So just going to put it that way. Next up, Marcus Rashford. Avoid, like, what's going on? I don't get it. Oh well. Tim Ream, I'm actually going to put in. I'm going to put him in optional, but it's just because I think I would actually put him slightly higher, like closer to Leno maybe, if it was Tete. So Tete, I don't know why you wouldn't go for Tete instead. Cheaper, much better attacking threat, playing for the exact same Fulham defence, just as nailed on. So you may as well go for him instead. But, you know, maybe if you... Remus has been doing not so bad for bonus points recently. So maybe that kind of factors in a little bit. Don't despise Ream. So he is an optional. But don't love it. Don't love it particularly. Nketiah, I think it's a decent transfer. I think his stock is definitely going down a little bit over the last few weeks. He has been missing some chances. But I know Nketiah well enough to say that he is a decent finisher in football. He always finds himself in the right positions. And we have continued to see him in the right positions. But obviously, you know, you can make certain comparisons with Darwin Núñez, for example. Darwin Núñez finds himself in the right position, but doesn't always finish his chances. Nketiah has scored a decent amount of goals since the World Cup break, but the last few games, he has been a little bit off it in terms of his finishing. So can he convert these chances to finishes? I'm not sure. His underlying numbers are good. I think he's a good enough finisher to come back from this. I still think he's a decent player to own. But yeah, certainly not as high as he has been previously. Zinchenko, I think, is a decent transfer as well. I don't expect him to get a goal every game week, don't get me wrong, but look, he's been playing well and he is pretty nailed on now. I know there was a little bit worried about him being potentially rotated with the likes of Tierney. Don't think that's really going to happen. I'm not going to put him much higher than good transfer though, because I still feel like he's not in the kind of optimal Arsenal, you know, trio of players that you would buy. He's not quite there, but I'd rather have like some of these other Arsenal players who we're going to speak about very briefly. Joe Gomez, I'm going to put higher than Van Dijk, and the reason being is that he's 4.3 million, which is a fantastic price. And Liverpool fans, let me know if you agree with me here or not, but I'm sure some of you will when I say that Gomez he's probably going to be playing. You know, Matip has been in horrific form for Liverpool. He's just not playing very well at the moment. Konate is still injured, which means the centre-back pairing, you would imagine, is going to be Van Dijk and Gomez. And Gomez, you're probably going to get a similar amount of points. You know, he's not really going to do too much worse for bonus points, realistically. And Gomez can even play right back if there was a little bit of rotation there as well. But you get him for so much cheaper. You get the same thing for so much cheaper. And you're not tying up your budget in a Liverpool defender who, let's be honest, you're not going to want to be playing every game week. 6.5 million, if you end up stuck with a Van Dijk for longer term, you spend 6.5 million, you're not going to want to play him every game week. You might be tempted to play him every game week and actually lose out. It's going to cause you long-term problems. But a 4.3 million defender is so cheap that you can bench him. You can just bench him pretty much every week if for all you care. And it doesn't matter because you haven't really got much money tied up in him. So, yeah, for that reason, I think it does pump him up. You would say that he's slightly more minutes risk than Van Dijk. Slightly. Maybe some people think Matip is going to come back in and get some minutes. But overall, I think between these two players, the trade-off is probably worth it, to be fair. Next up, Ødegaard. Let's put him in. I think he's still going to be in the good transfer category. I feel like if you are looking for that midfielder right now, and you're not tripled up on Arsenal yet, Ødegaard is probably your guy, right? He's probably the guy to get. So, in fact, let's put him in great transfer. Didn't score mega points in game week 24, but he did have some real good opportunities to score. He did actually miss a sitter in that game that Nketiah actually set up for him. My word, if that goal came off, then you know, a lot of game week 24s would look very, very different, I guess. But he did miss that chance. But it's still showing that he's still getting chances, you know, still creating for his teammates and still looking pretty good in general. So yeah, I think we might be seeing a decent double game week from Ødegaard. He's definitely a player I'd want to own given the option. Darwin Núñez, difficult to say. It's not looking too good. He has got a minor injury. We're not sure if he's going to be available. Hopefully we'll find out a little bit more information by the time the Champions League game rolls around. Even if he is available, is there going to be slight rotation risk? Yes. So Firmino is obviously back and available. Jota is back and available. So these players are going to be eating into the minutes of the likes of Darwin Nunez. So therefore, does that drop him down to optional? Difficult to say without knowing his injury status for sure. Right now, I personally would probably not be going for him. But there is, if he turns out he is available, I definitely do see him as an option. I'm going to put him in good transfer, provided he is fit. Provided he is fit. If he is not fit, obviously we're going to avoid him. It's obvious, right? Next up, we've got Robertson. Again, do we put him around Gomez? Like, he has a little bit of attacking potential there, more so than the likes of Gomez, more so than the likes of Van Dijk, I guess, but still not totally convinced. I don't think I would be going for Robertson. I'm going to put him in the avoid category. I'm going to put him as a high avoid, though. I would be tempted to move him into optional. Don't love this one. In fact, no, I'm being maybe a little hard. I think he is optional, just not my kind of player. He was, again, another player I would never dream of bringing him in unless I was thinking about wildcarding soon. He's not a player I want to own long term, really. And, he's not like he's been putting up quite the same numbers as Trent either. So he's not like a Trent replacement. I think people are kind of buying him because they perceive him as being cheap, but that price is still not cheap for a defender. Right, Tarkowski is going to be my first buy. Must buy of the game week. Like, I feel like at this point there is little excuse to not go for him. Everton, we're expecting them to do good defensively, not just this week, but in future game weeks as well. So you can play Tarkowski in the future. He is a player who you can keep for a little while. He's super cheap, so you can even bench him in those game weeks where you're not so keen on him. He is providing an insane amount of attacking threat. He is having so many chances to score from set pieces. He seems to be the target man for these set piece plays for Everton at the moment, which is really, really important. So all in all, we've got a double game week player with decent attacking threat that looks really good over the last few game weeks from those set pieces, which seems to be a key component of Sean Dyche's way he wants to set up this Everton team. He is also playing for a team that we're expected to do better and better and better defensively as well, with not such a bad double game week. Obviously, there's that Arsenal fixture in there. We've already seen what Tarkowski has done against Arsenal, There is a lot of things to like about a defender this cheap, and I feel like if you've got, all of these defenders who you don't want to keep, they have blanks in 25. Tarkowski is a decent replacement, not just because he is got a fixture this week and a double game week fixture this week, but he's also a player you can play in the future, which is something that I think a lot of the other double game week players don't have as much as Tarkowski has. So, the likes of Robertson, let's say Gomez, for example, same price as Tarkowski. You would rather have Tarkowski in the long term than Gomez. Tarkowski's got good fixtures. He's playing for a better defence. He's got more attacking threat. Same price, but you get so much more from Tarkowski, not just this week, but all the way through until whenever it is that you wildcard, then maybe you take him outright. So there's so much to like. If you've got a Luke Shaw, if you've got a Botman, if you've got a Fabian Schär, if you've got a Ben Mee, I could go on and on and on about all of these single game week, blank game week defenders who you may not be desperate to bring back in after the blank, in particular. So those Newcastle players, for example, who play Man City in 26, these are the perfect players to take out for Tarkowski right now, and you can't really go too wrong, if I'm totally honest. I like it. Ollie Watkins, not bad. Would he be top of my transfer list? Probably not, given all the double game weeks right now. It's a little bit more exciting, isn't it, to go for those double game week players, but still, I see a degree of appeal for Watkins, so I'm going to put him in there. Next up is, I should probably talk a little bit about Watkins. He is scoring pretty regularly right now. He's actually turning out to be a bit of a decent finisher, and Aston Villa's attack in general has been good recently. So, in general, Watkins actually fairly decent. The only problem with Aston Villa is we're not expecting really double game weeks for them anytime soon. Right, next up, Alisson. Too much money for a goalkeeper like that. Like, it's just such a bad defense. And you can't easily transfer in and out goalkeepers. So why not just go for someone who you're at least happy to play in future game weeks? You're not going to want to have Alisson after this game week, let's be real. So he is slightly cheaper than Van Dijk. I'm going to put him in the avoid category regardless, though. Trent Alexander-Arnold has been providing a little bit of attacking threat, and I feel like the upside of Trent. So yes, I'll keep saying that I don't think that Liverpool are a good defence, and even Liverpool fans will agree with me with that right now. But Trent does provide a lot of attacking threat. And if you do cheese a clean sheet, and you also get an attacking return, which is totally possible with Trent. We've seen that, how creative he has been over the last few weeks, back to his kind of usual creative self, I guess, in many ways. There is a lot of upside here. So I'm not saying this will go right, but because it has the potential to go so very right, that does give a little bit of appeal to someone like Trent Alexander-Arnold. He's got a super high price. You're probably not going to want to keep him long term, but the potential of points, risky one, don't get me wrong, risky one. I'm not a player I'd want to pick personally, but there's definitely appeal there, and I think he could actually score so many points that it's worth bringing him in and taking him back out again later. Actually make it worth your while. So, look, I'm going to be generous to Trent. He is going to go there. Saka, I think, is arguably the most essential player to have in your team right now. I think he's probably, for me, my #1 captain pick for Game Week 25 as well. So therefore, I'm going to put him in the must-buy category. I feel like even if you've already tripled up on Arsenal, I would make an effort to get Saka in for this week and captain him, to be honest. So yeah, we're going to put him in the must-buy category. I think he is the player to get this week. And there's one more player who I think is maybe treading the line on must-buy, but I'm going to put him in great transfer, and that's going to be Salah. I'm going to put him just below must-buy. Salah could feasibly be in the must-buy category, but I don't think he's quite there. He's definitely a great transfer. He's definitely a great player to bring in. He's on penalties. In a double game week, you get twice the chances for penalties. He's been playing... look, he's not at his best. Like the times where Salah was an insane, unbeatable, unplayable FPL asset is in the past. But we still have seen flashes of brilliance from Salah. He's still capable of those moments. And we've seen him a decent amount of times now, even since the break, a couple of times, get in those 10+ big point hauls, which some of our other, like premium players haven't even been able to do that. You know, we've not seen an insane amount of double digits points scores from even the likes of De Bruyne or Haaland, you know, even like Bruno Fernandes, if you kind of put him in that category. So in terms of these huge mega scores, these upside hauls, Salah is kind of competing with those guys. Maybe less consistent, obviously, but look, it happens, and you got to be in it to win it. You got to take that risk, which leaves one more player who I've been saving till last. It is going to be Cody Gakpo, the most popular transfer in for Game Week 25. Everyone is buying this man. Everyone is going mad for him. He scored 2 goals in his last 2. Expand it any further than those 2 games, and maybe you get a slightly different stats. But people are going mad for him, and yet I don't think he's a must-buy. I don't think he's a great transfer. I don't even think he's a good transfer. If it's me, if for my team personally, I'm avoiding him. I will not be buying Gakpo. Unless I see or hear something that changes my mind within the week, which does sometimes happen. It often happens. Look, I'm not so stubborn that I will just stick to an opinion forever. Like, I'm not that guy. But look, there's a lot of other players I'd rather get. Look, I think Iwobi could be scoring similar points to Gakpo, if I'm honest. And the issue really is minutes. It really is minutes. Like, the 2 fixtures that Liverpool play, I don't think they could be expected to score loads of goals in those games. I never fully trust Liverpool to score loads of goals right now, to be fair, which they haven't been. They haven't been scoring a lot of goals. Gakpo, I feel like, yes, he's a decent player, but he is going to be seriously minutes risk when we think of the likes of Jota and Firmino coming back into the team. Not sure how close Luis Diaz is as well, but certainly long term, you'd say Luis Diaz plays ahead of Gakpo. Gakpo was never brought into Liverpool to be one of their starting 3 forwards. He's there as cover, so his long term. How good he is going to be long term is very much up in the air. Just because I feel like he will just about outscore the likes of Grealish and Iwobi perhaps. I don't think it justifies his price tag necessarily, but he will probably be outscoring those players. I'm going to put him in optional, but look, I don't really like this pick. I'll be totally honest. I think he's rotation risk. I think he has been perhaps not shown enough consistency in the Premier League. I think he is a terrible long-term asset, and he's a player that you will definitely have to remove again. So those of you guys taking -4s to get in Gakpo, I feel like you will be taking more -4s to remove him again. So you have to think, is he worth the 8 points? Are we that confident he's going to score that amount of points? If we're making predictions or using predictions models, we'll probably say that it is objectively not worth it to go for Gakpo if you're going to have to take hits to bring him both in and out. And yet there is a little bit of hope around him. We've seen some brilliant moments from him in the World Cup, for example, or in the Eredivisie. But for me, he's not a good FPL pick, and he is the most popular FPL pick of the entire week, and I don't think he should be. I think there are better options right now. Saka, Tarkowski, Salah, Pickford, Erdegaard, Nketiah, Kilman's up there, Zinchenko, even Darwin if fit, Watkins I don't hate, Trent Alexander-Arnold. There are so many players I'd rather bring in than Gakpo, and yet Gakpo is the most popular transfer because he happens to fill that niche where he is a midfielder that is fairly expensive and seems on the face of it, on paper, like the replacement for a Rashford or a Bruno Fernandes, players that you're probably going to want to have back immediately after this game week. It looks good if you apply the most limited possible logic. I think this is a trap. I don't like Gakpo. There we go. I'm sure he's a lovely guy, but I don't like him as an FPL pick. Right, there we go. A massive, really long video. I just got so much to say. I've got so much to say. I'm sorry. Hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, please do leave a like. Please do subscribe if you haven't done already. And let me know what you think about the tier list. Any other players you want to talk about, or any players you either agree or disagree with, let me know in the comments as well. Always good to get some of your guys' opinions and see what kind of other different perspectives there are out there. But there we go, guys. See you again for the next video and streams and what have you. But for now, thank you so much for watching once again, and I'll see you later, mates. Bye-bye.